Today is the day that the good Lord has made, and today I am going to show you how to make the Jolene drawstring bag inspired by Loewe. Avajulis Craft is officially 2 years old, and we are celebrating with a new designer inspired pattern. And also all our bags and all our patterns are 20% off. Okay, so you're getting the Jolene bag and other patterns at 20% off, so make use of the opportunity now. The main closure for this bag is the magnetic snap and the drawstring, obviously, and inside you'll find a spacious interior with a zipper pocket with an overlay and also a single welt pocket. I love this bag so much. It is easy to make. It is super duper easy to make, nothing complicated at all. Boxed corners, super duper easy to make, and I feel like this bag is so beautiful. I'm right? The bag is so beautiful. Okay, so today I am going to show you how to make this bag, and I hope that it is comprehensive enough. If there is anything you don't understand, please let me know. I also made another bag using fabric. This is it. It is super beautiful as well, but there are changes. There are some little changes. For instance, the rope. The way I made the drawstring for the fabric is different from the way I made it for the vinyl. I am going to show you guys both methods, and also the strap connector. As you can see, the strap connector for the fabric version is on the outside, but for the vinyl version it is on the inside. So at the end of the day, we settled for the vinyl version, which is on the inside of the bag. By the way, this is not vinyl, this is leather. I'm so used to saying vinyl, but the interior is the same thing. You have a spacious interior with a zipper pocket that has an overlay and a single welt pocket. Okay, now as you can see, the single welt pocket for the fabric version is wider than that of the leather version. At the end of the day, we met in the middle, so yours will be like in the middle. I don't know if you understand. Yours will not be as wide as the fabric version, and it won't be as small as the leather version that I have here. There are two different ways to make the welt pockets, the fabric version and the leather version. Both methods are in the written instructions. So without making our introduction too long, let us get this tutorial started. Are you very excited? Now I have my drawstring ready and good to go. My crossbody strap is prepped. For our hardware, this bag is not big on hardware. We don't need a lot. A zipper tape, 9-inch zipper tape for our zipper pockets. For our crossbody strap, we need our hooks, our strap adjuster, we need the D-ring, we need a magnetic snap for the closure, and yeah, that is it. And our zipper pull, then the elastic or the cord shredder that I'm going to be using. Now the leather I'm using for this bag is soft. I don't know anything about the leather. I got it for free. It is super soft. That's what I am using for my exterior, and for my interior I am using waterproof canvas so that it adds some stiffness to the bag, because I am using a soft exterior panel that I am not going to be stabilizing. Alright, if you're using leather vinyl caulk, you do not need a stabilizer, but if you're using fabric, then you're going to be using a stabilizer. I hope you understand. Then I have my linings for my zipper pocket, my bottom stabilizer, and also my reinforcement tabs. So we don't need a lot of pieces, alright, and not a lot of hardware. Okay, we are going to skip the crossbody strap, and I'm going to move over to my drawstring. Now I'm going to wrap the cord to the middle of my leather so that my leather is wrong sides touching. Now I am using my zipper foot, and I am going to sew as close as I possibly can to the cord without stitching the cord to the leather. Okay, so that is how you want to do it. Now I need to let you all know that I am not going to be showing my sewing machine a lot, because my sewing machine was actually jamming and it was ruining the whole thing. Okay, so this was not the one, this was not the leather I was supposed to use. I used the vinyl. I was using vinyl from the onset, but my sewing machine has been jamming and it wrecked the whole thing, and I had to abandon that material and I picked this leather. Okay, so after stitching, or after sewing rather, I'm going to call my repairer, the engineer, to check my sewing machine because it is really bad. It is really acting up. At the end of the project, if you look at the back closely, you're going to see the stitches and you're going to notice that the stitches are not that professional. Well, I had to get it ready. I had to make the video for you guys. Okay, yeah, so I'm not going to be showing my sewing machine a lot because who wants to watch me struggle or fight with my sewing machine? Nobody, right? So after I am done stitching all the way to the ends, I am going to cut off or trim off the excess so that we have at least about 1/8 of an inch left. Now, because I'm using leather, I am going to just make sure that I trim it so that it is as neat as I can. If you have a rotary cutter, a cutting mat, and a ruler, I feel like that is best. And after doing that, you can finish the edges however you like. So whether you're using edge coat or you're leaving it like that, it is your choice. I am just going to leave mine like that, but I'm going to trim so that it is as neat as I possibly can. So now I have 2 strips all done and ready to go for my drawstring, and now I am going to show you a mock-up of how to make the fabric version. So let's assume that this is the length of the entire rope that we want to use, so something like this. Let's just assume this is the length of the entire rope we want to use. So we are going to cut our fabric to be also that length. That is what we are going to do. Okay, this is just for practical purposes. So we are going to cut our fabric to be that length, but for the rope we are going to cut it to be double that length. Okay, so double the length like this. So this is double of the finished length that we want, but our fabric is going to be the exact finished length that we want. We are going to place our fabric right side down like so, and we are going to place it to 1/2 of our strip, but we are going to place it in such a way that we have at least 1 inch hanging out from one end, so that the other end is to the middle of the rope, something like this. Okay, and we are going to wrap it. So remember, this is right side up, so the rope is to the center of the fabric on the right side, and we are going to wrap that around, making sure that we have at least 1 inch hanging. This is it. I'm not going to sew, instead I'm going to use a stapler. Okay, so now on this middle end, this side, I am going to wrap like so, and you are going to stitch across in order to anchor the rope to the fabric. Okay, so you're just going to stitch a couple of times in order to anchor the rope to the fabric. I'm just going to do that. Then you're going to use your zipper foot and you're going to stitch all the way to the end. So from this area right here all the way to the end, as close to the rope as possible without stitching down the rope. Okay, so I'm just going to use my stapler to do that. So I'm done stapling, but let's just assume that I'm done stitching. So remember, you want to stitch across to anchor the rope to the fabric, then as close as you possibly can to the rope without stitching the rope down. Okay, so now I'm going to trim off my seam allowance. So you want to trim off your seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. So this is my seam allowance trimmed and ready to go. This is 1/2 of the rope. So now what I'm going to do is that I am going to pull this end. So you see the 1 inch hanging rope that we have, I'm going to pull on it while pulling on this side. Okay, so what we want to do is that we want to turn the fabric to the other side of the rope. Okay, so it reveals the right side of the fabric. Remember, this is the wrong side of the fabric we have up. Okay, you want to do it little by little, just keep pulling. Now I have gathered the fabric, I have scrunched it up. So when you get to this point, you just want to rub this side, you want to pull and you want to rub it. So because I stapled instead of sewing, it is not responding, but you're going to rub and fold while pulling the fabric. Okay, so you're going to keep doing that until the entire fabric turns to the other side and it reveals the right side. So when you are done, what you're going to do is that you're going to cut away the excess rope from the points at which you anchored the rope to the fabric. Okay, you're going to cut the excess rope, you're going to straighten everything, and that is all. I hope you understand what I'm saying. For my strap connector, I have drawn a line across the middle on the wrong side of the panel, and I am going to apply double-sided tape to either side of the line, and I am going to fold the long end to meet that line in the middle. Now after doing that, I am going to insert my D-ring to the end that I have the stabilizer on. Yes, I am going to insert it, and I am going to fold it down by 1 inch. Now after doing that, that is it for the strap connector. We need 2 pieces of the strap connector, and I am going to keep it aside so that we can move over to the next step. To prep my drawstring passage, I am going to bring one of my main panels, and I am going to place it wrong side up on my work surface, and I am going to be using my craft knife and my ruler and a poly board just to put underneath. So we have a line that we drew for the drawstring passage, so I'm going to cut on the top and bottom of the line. Okay, we are not cutting the entire drawstring passage, we are not cutting everything, we are only cutting on the top and bottom line. All right, and I am going to do that for all the panels that have the drawstring passage. Okay, so for the other main panel and for both the top lining panels. I hope you understand what I explained. If there is anything you don't understand, please let me know in the comment section. Okay, I'm just showing you the result, what it looks like after I am done cutting for all the panels. So next I am going to use double-sided tape. So I'm going to stick double-sided tape on that area. Now you could use glue, I prefer you use glue, but I'm going to use double-sided tape. I am going to put double-sided tape on that area, and I am going to flip the fabric that we cut. I am going to flip it down so that it has a fold, so that when we are done with the bag, we don't have any raw edge on that area. Instead, we have a folded drawstring passage that is neat. I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Now I want you to look at my fingers. Look at the way I placed my fingers above and below the drawstring passage in order for me to fold easily. That is what you are going to do. Or you are going to take the pattern piece. If you printed out your pattern, you are going to take your pattern piece and you're just going to place it on the wrong side of the panel you want to fold in, and you're going to use that as a guide. I hope you understand. So yeah, now that I am done, I'm just going to show you that I stitch from the point where the passage starts and stops. So you're just going to top stitch from where the passage starts and stop. You can back stitch if you like, but I left long thread tails, so I tied them at the back. So now I am going to bring out my top lining, my magnetic snap, my reinforcement tabs, so that I can install my magnetic snaps. Now if you're watching this video, I already assume that you're already an intermediate or a confident beginner, because this is an intermediate pattern, and I feel like by now you already know how to install a magnetic snap. So I'm just going to let you watch me install my magnetic snap. Enjoy. Now after installing, you can decide to use a masking tape over the wrong side of the snap so that it doesn't rub off on the main panel. I forgot, that is why I didn't do it here, but you can do it if that is what you want. Let's move on to the next step. To sew my main panel, I am going to place both panels right sides touching, and I am going to stitch across the bottom. Now after doing that, I am going to press the seam allowance flat, and I am going to top stitch across the bottom again from the right side. Okay, so we are top stitching from the right side, 1/8 of an inch from the stitches that I made. Alright, so this is what the back looks like, and this is what the front looks like. Now I'm going to place right sides touching again, and I am going to stitch the sides. Now we are stitching from below the drawstring passage to the end. Alright, so we are not stitching above the drawstring passage, no, just below the drawstring passage to the end, and I'm going to stitch both sides. Now that that is done, it is time for me to box my corners. Now to box my corners, I am going to place the panel right sides touching so that the bottom seam and the side seam aligns. Okay, and I'm going to stitch from one end of the corner to the other as per the seam allowance in the instructions. Right. Okay, that is done. Now you can decide to insert the bottom stabilizer here, but I am going to leave that for later. Okay, so our main panel is done. I am going to keep this aside so that we can move over to the next step. I'm going to begin with my zipper pockets. And if you're using fabric, you know that there are steps prior to this, and if you're using vinyl or leather like I am, you want to skip over to step 6 in the instructions. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to place a strip of double-sided tape on each side of the pocket window on the wrong side. After that is done, I am going to remove the backing of my double-sided tape, and I am going to place it where it is supposed to go on the bottom lining. So when you print out your panel, when you print out your pattern rather, in the bottom lining there is the overlay panel or the overlay pattern attached to the bottom lining. So when you cut that out of the bottom lining, it gives you a hole, and that hole is your guide on where to place the overlay. Okay, so I'm done top stitching around the outer corner of my overlay panel, and I am tying the threads that I kept, the long thread tails rather, on the wrong side of my panel, but you can back stitch if you want. Now that that is done, I am going to cut out the middle section of my bottom lining so that we have a window to work with. Okay, because we need to insert our zipper tape to that area so that we are able to see it from the front. Okay, now you want to make sure that you are not cutting your overlay panel, and you want to make sure that you're not cutting your stitches. All right. That is done. We have our window. Now we can see through it. Now I am going to place my zipper tape, and I'm going to place it right side down to the wrong side of my bottom lining. Now, as you can see that I have not inserted my zipper pull at this point, but you can decide to insert your zipper pull before doing this. Okay, so you can insert your zipper pull from the onset. You don't have to wait till later in order to insert your zipper pull, but I am just going to wait till later. Okay, now you want to hold this down with double-sided tape, and you want to make sure that you are adjusting till it is right. Okay, until it is centered on the overlay panel. Now that I am satisfied with the way it looks, I am going to apply a strip of double-sided tape to the bottom of my zipper tape, and I'm going to place my lining right side down so that the short end of my lining aligns with the end of the zipper tape that I have the double-sided tape on. And I'm going to place it so that the more of the pocket lining is on the top. Okay, so just as you see me do here. So that is done. Now I'm going to flip to the right side and I'm going to stitch across the bottom alone. Now you can decide to back stitch at the beginning and end, but I'm going to leave long thread tails that I'm going to tie at the back. So you want to make sure that at the beginning you start one stitch from the corner and you end one stitch from the other corner. Okay, I hope you understand. So now that I am done with that, I am going to insert my zipper pull. Now if you waited till later to insert your zipper pull, this is when you do it. Okay, if you don't do it now, you're going to forget and you're going to realize that you stitch your zipper pocket without inserting the zipper pull. So do it now. You have an advantage since one side of the zipper tape is sewn in place. You have an advantage, excuse me. So you just peel the upper section of the zipper tape away from the double-sided tape, you insert your zipper pull, and after you're done with that, you're just going to let the panel fall back naturally as it would. Then you press it to the double-sided tape so that it sticks back, and you want to make sure that you are pressing your lining. Okay, so you press it away from the zipper tape the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so now I have applied a strip of double-sided tape to the top part of my zipper tape. Now I'm going to bring the other end of my pocket lining back up so that it aligns with the zipper tape. I'm going to press it onto the zipper tape and I'm going to flip to the right side and I am going to stitch. Now I'm going to stitch starting and stopping at where the previous stitch starts and stops. Okay, so the side across the top and down to the other side. You can back stitch if you want, but I'm going to leave long thread tails that I am going to tie at the back. That is done. I am going to flip over to the wrong side and I'm going to trim my pocket lining because it is too long, but you do not need to trim your pocket lining. All you need to do is to cut on that fold so that the pocket lining is open. Okay, so you're not trimming. I trimmed about half an inch away, but you are not trimming. Okay, I changed the instructions, but you want to make sure that your zipper pocket lining is open as I have, and you're going to stitch the sides short. You are only going to stitch the sides and not the bottom. Okay, you want to make sure that the bottom is open as I have. Now I am going to bring the top lining with the male side of my magnetic snap, and I am going to place right side stitching so that the bottom of the top lining is to the top of my bottom lining. I am going to sew across. I am going to press the seam allowance to the bottom lining and I'm going to stitch an 1/8 of an inch from the seam. So we are top stitching an 1/8 of an inch from the seam, and after that is done, yeah, we're done with this panel. And as you can see, I have excess leather here. That is cutting error on my end. I was thinking that the leather stretched, but that is cutting error on my end. So that's that for the zipper pocket. If you're using fabric for your waist pockets, please follow the instructions. But for me, I have my turning fabric, and on the wrong side I have 2 lines horizontally spaced 1 inch apart. Now from each short end I am going to measure 1.5. You are going to measure 1.5 from each side. Okay, I did measure 2 inches, but you should measure 1.5. And I am going to connect the short ends so that we have the finished width of our welt pocket, and I'm going to draw a line inside the box that we have formed. Okay, so that we have the midpoint of the box that we formed. And from each short ends of our box I am going to measure 1/2 inch in. So we are going to measure 1/2 inch in, and we are going to mark that point. So from that point I am going to draw horizontal lines to the corners of the box. I'm going to draw diagonal lines. Okay, diagonal lines to extend to the corners of my box. Okay, so now I'm going to fold both my bottom lining and my turning fabric right sides touching, so that we have a center crease. We are going to fold widthwise so that we have a center crease, and I'm going to place the turning fabric on the bottom lining as per the instructions in the pattern, and I am going to stitch following the box, the outline of the box that we drew. Okay, okay, that is done. Now I am going to cut on the middle line that I drew earlier. Okay, so I'm going to cut on the middle line to the tip of the diagonal lines and into the diagonal lines so I can cut the corners. Now you want to make sure that you're not cutting into your stitches. Okay, so now I am going to flip my turning fabric to the wrong side of my bottom lining. Okay, so you want to turn to make sure that you don't have any crease or any folding. If you really snipped the fabric as close to the corners as possible, you will not have any crease, and even though you have, it will be on the wrong side. Okay, so make sure that you are pressing in place. Do not mind me, I am not showing that I am pressing, but you want to make sure that you are pressing as you go. So now I am going to take my welt pocket slip, and my lining. I am going to place them right sides touching so that the short ends align. I am just going to hold them together with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I am going to flip the lining, or the seam rather, to the lining, and I'm going to top stitch on the lining with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I hope that is comprehensive enough. Once again, if there's anything you do not understand, feel free to ask me in the comment section. Now I am going to bring back the bottom lining that we've prepped, and I'm going to place a strip of double-sided tape to the bottom area of my turning fabric. Okay, and I am going to place the welt pocket slip on the turning fabric so that it aligns to the end of my turning fabric where I have my double-sided tape. Okay, and as you can see, the rest of my lining is upwards, like it covers the entire pocket window, and I'm going to stitch across the bottom, one stitch away from one corner and the other stitch away from the other corner at the beginning and the end. Okay, so now that that is done, this is what I have. Now I am going to flip the entire panel down, but I am going to fold at the top of the pocket window. Okay, so I am folding my welt lip at the top of the pocket window so that it aligns with the top of the pocket window, not above it. You do not want to block your welt pocket. You still want it to be as functional as it is beautiful. Okay, so yeah, you fold so that the fold aligns with the top of my pocket window, and you want to check, okay, you want to check from the front. Put your hands into the pocket to see if your hands can still go in, okay, and you adjust till you are satisfied, till you have the right thing. Okay, now I am sure I have the right thing. I'm just going to bring the other end of my lining, and I'm going to place it so that it aligns with the top of my turning fabric. I am going to lift the clip that I used to hold the welt pocket slip, and I'm going to use that clip to hold everything in place. And I'm going to stitch from the right side, starting and stopping where I stitched previously, okay, so from the side across the top and down the other side. You can decide to backstitch at the beginning and end, but I'm going to leave long thread tails that I'm going to tie at the back. After that is done, I'm going to stitch the sides, and I am going to trim off the excesses that I've got, and my beautiful welt pocket is ready and good to go. Right now, after I'm done with that, I am going to bring the other top lining, and I am going to place it right sides down just like I did previously, so that the bottom of the top lining aligns with the top of the bottom lining. I'm going to stitch the way I did previously, and our lining panels are ready. I am going to place the panels right sides touching, my lining panels right sides touching, and I am going to stitch from the bottom of the drawstring passage. I'm going to start sewing with a 3/8 seam allowance, but I am going to increase gradually about ½ inch from my starting point to 6/8, 5/8 seam allowance. Okay, so after that is done, I am going to open up my lining panel like so, and I'm going to place my strap connector so that the bottom of the strap connector aligns with the bottom of the lining at that corner. Okay, so you want to make sure that it is centered, and I am going to sew from one side, so we are stop stitching from one side of the strap connector all the way up and as close as to the D-ring as we possibly can, across the top and down the other side with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now that I've done that, this is what I've got. Now I'm going to place right side stitching again, and I am going to repeat the previous steps. Okay, this is what I've got after stitching the other side. I am done stitching both sides, and I was trying to reduce the bulk at the corners. That was what I was trying to do. At this point, I already did that to the first corner. Okay, so I thought to show you guys how to place the panel while sewing, in case you do not know how to do that, so it doesn't get confused, so that you don't get confused. Okay, so yeah, you just place it like so and you stitch. Now I'm going to bring both my main panel and my lining panel, and I'm going to place them right sides touching. Okay, so whether you're placing the main panel into the lining panel or the lining panel into the main panel, you want to make sure that both panels are right sides touching. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I am aligning the top area, so you want to align both top area and the corners. Okay, you want to align the top area, the corners, make sure you clip or you stitch them in place. After I'm done doing that, I am going to start stitching from above the drawstring passage all the way across the top and down to the other side of the drawstring passage. Okay, so we are not stitching on the drawstring passage. Okay, so just above the drawstring passage all the way across and down to the other side above the drawstring passage. Okay, now we are going to stitch the bottom area of the drawstring passage. So we are going to stitch right below the drawstring passage across the seam and up the other side of the drawstring passage. Okay, doing that with the seam allowance and the instructions. Now that that is done, I am going to snip the corners. So the corners below the drawstring passage, you want to snip into the corners without snipping your stitches. Okay, so you don't want to cut or break your stitches. You want to snip as close to the corner as you possibly can. After that is done, I am going to snip the corners at the top area, and I am also going to notch the curves. Okay, so we have a curve at the top area and somewhere around the side. I am going to do so, and I am using my zigzag or my zigzag scissors, that's what we call it here, using my pinking shears. You do not have to use your pinking shears, you can just notch, but this is easier, right? This is easier. Look, my sewing machine is broken and I do not know how I got to stitch this bag. I really do not know. It is a miracle. It is a miracle. So what I was trying to do here is that I was trying to reduce the bulk at the side so that it would be easier for me to stitch down that side later on. Now after that is done, I am going to pull out the main panel from the large opening that we have, and the lining at the bottom of the lining. We're simply breadthing our bag the easy way. So yeah, I'm going to put my fingers in the corners to poke out my corners. You can use your stiletto tool. I'm also going to use my fingers to push out the top so that the curve sits right, and we are going to adjust, making sure that everything sits nice and right. So that is done. This is what I've got. Now I am going to top stitch the same way I attached both panels together. Okay, so we are top stitching right from above the drawstring passage across the top and down to meet the other side above the drawstring passage, and we are going to top stitch below the drawstring passage across the side seam and up to meet the other side below the drawstring passage. But I did not stitch the side. Yeah, the side I'm showing you now, I did not stitch the side because I do not want my sewing machine to die. I was really frustrated, guys. I was crying. I really cried. Now all the stitches, the top stitch, you want to make sure that it meets the starting and end points of the stitches that we made on the drawstring passage. Okay, and if you did not insert your bottom stabilizer right from when we stitched the main panel, this is the time for you to do so. You can glue or fuse in place. I am just putting my hands in so that I arrange the bottom stabilizer so that it sits properly. Okay, that is done. So now I am going to open up my zipper pockets and I am going to pull the bottom of my lining panel right through the zipper pockets. Okay, so I'm going to pull the bottom of the lining panel through. I am going to place it right sides touching, and I am going to sew across the bottom with a 5/8 seam allowance. Now after doing that, you are going to trim your seam allowance and you are going to box the corners. Okay, so you are going to sew the corners, making sure that the bottom seam and the side seam aligned, and you are going to stitch across from one corner to the other with a 5/8 seam allowance, and you are going to trim off your seam allowance. Okay, so after doing that, you are going to push the lining back in through the zipper pockets. You're going to push it, making sure everything sits nice and the corners are poked out. Okay, you want to make sure that the corners are poked out. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure that everything sits nice and flat. And after that's done, I am going to pull out the zipper pocket lining I am going to fold the ends in, that's the raw ends. I am going to fold in by half an inch, wrong side touching to the wrong sides. I am going to fold by half an inch. You want to make sure that you press this in place, okay? And I'm going to top stitch across with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and after that is done, that is the end of this tutorial. Bye. You know, that was a joke, right? Yeah. To insert my drawstring, I am simply going to thread my drawstring to my cord threader, and I am going to pass from one opening of the drawstring passage so that it comes out the other side. I am going to pass it again through the opposite opening so that it comes out the last hole. I hope you understand that explanation, and I am going to repeat to the other side. So you want to make sure that the drawstring strips, that the strips are facing opposite direction, okay? So you want to have extra ends of the drawstring on each side. Now if you have decided to add rivets to the sides like I did instead of top stitching, you want to make sure that your rivets are right beside the seam, okay? You do not want to rivet into the seam so that you do not break your seam, okay? So just like I showed earlier, right beside the seam. Before tying the knot, you want to make sure that you have at least equal length of the drawstring on each side. Maybe not perfectly equal, but equal to an extent, okay? And now we have a right side and a left side of the drawstring. Now on the left side of the drawstring, you are going to measure about 4 inches downwards from the drawstring passage. You are going to fold that up, and you're going to fold that down again so that we have like an upside down S. I hope you understand, okay? So the left side of the strip, that is what I am folding right now. I hope you can see that. Now I'm going to take the right strip and I'm going to pass it through the hole that was formed at the top of, you know, when we folded the strip back down. Yeah, that hole. So you want to pass it from under so that it comes out, and you're going to start wrapping. Okay, so you wrap around as far as the strip can go, maybe 3 or 4 times. You wrap around until you get to the end, and when you're done wrapping, you are going to pass the end of the strip you're using to wrap. You're going to pass it through the wraps that you've made. Okay, you may not be able to pass it all at once. You should do it one at a time, like the way I am doing, going from one wrap to the other, and you want to make sure that it comes out of the first wrap. Okay, out of the first wrap that you took to go around the left side of the strip. I hope you understand what I am saying. So you want to make sure that it comes out of the first wrap, and you want to pull the ends of the strips, both ends. You want to pull to tighten. You want to make sure that it is tight as you can possibly get it. Okay, so you are going to pull both ends of the strip to tighten, and you're also going to pull the right strip. Remember, there's a strip to the right and there's a strip to the left. You want to pull the right strip to further tighten. Okay, and in order to adjust, you should pull the left strip. That is when you're done tying both knots. You want to make sure that both knots look identical on both sides. That is the only time when you should pull the left strip. Okay, if you pull the left strip too far, the entire knot is going to unravel. Okay, that is how we'll be losing the entire knot. You do not want to pull that. Okay, only the right strip to tighten and the ends of both strips. I hope you understand. If there is anything you do not understand, please leave me a comment in the comment section. Okay, I am going to try my best to explain to my bestest capability. Right, so now that that is done, and yeah, I am sure that I have the equal sides. Oh god, English is not coming this morning. So when I'm sure that I am satisfied with what I want, I am going to cut the excess strips. So the ends of the excess strips, you're going to cut as close to the knot as you possibly can, if possible, so that it is not seen. But you don't want to cut so that the entire knot unravels. Okay, just as close as you possibly can, and you do that to both sides. Oh, I also want to let you know, I forgot to let you know that when you are tying your knots, while you are doing all this, you want to make sure that your bag is not scrunched up. Okay, you want to make sure that it is loose, it is not scrunched up. Okay, and our Jolene drawstring bag is ready. Easy and simple. If there is anything you do not understand, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section. Bye.